Your Ford floats over bumps like a boat. It clunks over every pothole. The steering wanders, and you're starting to wonder if the whole front end is about to cost you thousands. Here's what nobody tells you. Most suspension parts don't die of old age. They die early, killed by specific things you're doing or not doing, and almost all of it is preventable for the price of a car wash. And here's the honest part right up front. Nothing on your truck lasts literally forever. Shocks, struts, bushings, ball joints, they're all wear parts, and anyone promising you an immortal suspension is selling you something. But here's what's real. The gap between a Ford whose front end is shot at 80,000 miles and one that's still tight past 200,000 is enormous, and it comes down to a handful of cheap habits. Let's clear up how this stuff actually dies first, because it changes everything about how you protect it. Your suspension isn't one part. It's a system of connected pieces all working together. Shocks and struts that damp the bounce so your truck doesn't wallow. Springs that carry the weight. Bushings, the rubber cushions at every joint that quietly absorb vibration, and ball joints and tie rods that let it all pivot and steer. Every one of those has a real lifespan. Shocks and struts often go somewhere around 50 to 100,000 miles. Bushings around 60 to 100,000. Ball joints often longer. But those numbers swing wildly based on how you drive and where you drive. And here's the key thing almost nobody understands. These parts kill each other. When one wears out, it doesn't fail alone. It throws extra stress onto everything connected to it, and the whole system starts wearing out faster than it should. Let me give you the perfect example. A worn bushing or a slightly leaking shock seems totally minor. Just a little clunk, a little extra bounce, nothing that stops you from driving. But that one worn part lets the surrounding components move in ways they were never designed to move. That extra, uncontrolled motion accelerates wear on your struts, on your other bushings, on your tie rods, even on your tires. So the single thing that makes your suspension last is not some magic part or a bottle of anything. It's catching that first small failure before it drags 3 other parts down with it. Everything in this video is built around that one idea. Now let me show you exactly how to do it, step by step. Number 1, and this is the single biggest one, get your alignment checked and fixed. When your wheels aren't pointed exactly right, every single mile you drive drags your tires and loads your suspension unevenly, wearing both out far faster than they should ever wear. The telltale signs are a truck that pulls to one side on a flat road, or a steering wheel that's off-center when you're going straight. Sometimes it's tires wearing more on one edge than the other. Here's when it matters most. After you slam through a big pothole, after any suspension work at all, or just once a year as a baseline, an alignment is one of the cheapest services at any shop. The set of tires and the premature suspension where it prevents are not even close to cheap. Number 2, keep your tires properly inflated and rotated. This sounds like it's about tires, but it's really about your suspension. Underinflated or unevenly worn tires change how force hits your suspension on every single bump and corner, putting uneven, unpredictable load through your shocks and bushings mile after mile. Check your pressure once a month and rotate your tires every 5,000 miles or so, roughly every other oil change. That keeps the load even across the whole system, and the tires wearing flat instead of lopsided. It's the cheapest suspension maintenance that exists, it takes 5 minutes, and most people completely ignore it until something's already worn out. Number 3, respect potholes and curbs, because this is where sudden death happens instead of slow wear. Gradual wear is one thing, but a single hard hit on a pothole at speed can bend a control arm, crack a spring, knock your alignment out cold, or blow a strut in an instant. One bad hole can undo years of careful maintenance in a second. You can't avoid every pothole on the road, but slowing down for rough stretches and not curbing your wheels when you park genuinely extends the life of every component down there. And it's not just impacts. Aggressive driving, hard braking, sharp, fast cornering, all of it constantly stacks extra stress onto the system. Smooth, deliberate driving is completely free, and it's one of the single biggest things separating a suspension that lasts from one that's rattling apart at 80,000 miles. Number 4, and this one is huge for a Ford truck specifically, fight the rust. If you live anywhere they salt the roads in winter, salt is quietly eating your suspension from the outside in. Every single day it sits caked on there. It corrodes your springs, the brackets your bushings bolt into, and the frame that the whole suspension hangs from. F-150 owners in salt states know this pain intimately. Trucks with frames and leaf springs rusting badly while the aluminum body still looks brand new. There are stories of tires literally having to be beaten off rusted hubs with a sledgehammer. The fix is simple and cheap. Wash your undercarriage regularly through the winter, especially right after driving on freshly salted roads. Most touchless car washes have an underbody spray option for just a few dollars. That one habit, rinsing the salt off before it can sit and work, does more for a salt belt Ford's longevity than almost anything else you can do. Number 5, protect the parts that are already exposed down there. For serious salt exposure, an annual undercoating like fluid film or a professional treatment like Crown or Corrosion Free creates a real barrier on your frame and suspension components. Owners in heavy salt regions report trucks staying nearly rust-free for a decade, doing this every single year, versus frames rusting through in the first few winters without it. And here's a specific one to watch: your ball joint boots. A ball joint almost always fails the exact same way. Its little rubber boot rips open, then water and grit get into the joint, the grease washes out, and it grinds itself to death from the inside. A torn boot spotted early is a cheap, easy fix. A destroyed ball joint is not, and a fully failed one can actually cause you to lose steering control, so this is a safety item, not just a longevity one. Number 6, inspect everything at every oil change. And this is where it all comes together. When your Ford is already up in the air for an oil change, that's the single best moment to have someone check the whole system, because it costs you almost nothing in extra time. Look for leaking fluid on the shocks and struts. That dark, wet, oily film running down the body of the shock means the seal is failing and the part is on its way out. Check the bushings and joints for play and cracking in the rubber. Grab the tires at 12 and 6 o'clock and feel for any looseness or knocking, which points at worn joints. On older Fords, the ball joints and tie rods may have grease fittings that need periodic greasing, though most modern ones are sealed for life. All of this costs almost nothing when the truck's already on the lift, and it's the single habit that catches that first small failure before it quietly cascades into 3 more. While the truck's on the lift, it's worth knowing the specific warning signs so you can catch these yourself between oil changes. A clunk or knock when you go over a bump usually points at a worn bushing, ball joint, or strut mount. A truck that keeps bouncing after a dip instead of settling right away means your shocks or struts are worn out. Squeaking over bumps is often a dry or failing bushing, and a nosedive that feels sharper than it used to under braking is another sign the dampers are going. None of these fix themselves, and every one of them gets more expensive the longer it's ignored. Because of that cascade we talked about, the moment you notice any of them is the moment to look, not 6 months later. Now here's the honest limit. None of this makes a worn-out part new again. If your shock is already leaking or your ball joint is already loose, no habit on earth brings it back to life. That part needs replacing, full stop, and anyone who tells you a spray or a trick reverses real wear is lying to you. What these habits actually do is 2 very real things. They dramatically slow down how fast your parts wear in the first place, stretching a 50,000-mile part toward 150, and they catch the failures early while they're still a cheap single part instead of an expensive 4-part cascade. That's the real game here. Not immortality, just refusing to let one small failure snowball into a repair bill that makes you consider a new truck. And here's exactly why catching it early saves you the real money in plain numbers. Replace one worn bushing early, and you've spent a little bit of money and an hour of labor. Ignore that same bushing, and it lets your struts wear out faster. It throws off your alignment, and that bad alignment chews through a full set of tires before you finally deal with any of it. Now you're paying for the bushing anyway, plus struts, plus an alignment, plus tires. Same original $10 problem, 4 times the total bill, sometimes more. The simple habit of looking at every single oil change is what keeps you on the cheap side of that equation for the entire life of the truck. That's the whole secret. It's not one product. It's paying attention before small becomes big. One more genuinely useful thing for when a part does finally need replacing, because doing it right is part of making the whole system last. When you replace shocks or struts, do them in pairs, both fronts or both rears together. A brand new strut next to a worn one makes the truck handle unevenly and puts odd stress back into the system. And after you replace anything that affects your alignment, especially struts, get an alignment done immediately. Struts actually help set your alignment angles. Swapping them without realigning will pull the truck to one side, lengthen your braking, and wear your fresh tires unevenly, undoing the exact benefit you just paid for. Spending a little more to do the job completely is what makes the new parts actually last their full lifespan, instead of wearing out early like the ones before them. So, let's bring it all together. Get your alignment right so nothing wears unevenly. Keep your tires inflated and rotated to spread the load across the whole system. Respect potholes and curbs to prevent the sudden damage that undoes years of care in a second. Wash the salt off your undercarriage all winter and protect it with an undercoating. Watch your ball joint boots for the tear that kills the joint. And inspect the whole system at every single oil change, so one small failure never gets the chance to become four. Do those things and replace worn parts in pairs with an alignment when the time finally comes. And your Ford suspension won't last literally forever because nothing does. But it will outlast almost every other one on the road, and it'll save you thousands getting there. If this saved you from an expensive front-end surprise, do me a favor and subscribe.